Well, hello, Roger. So wonderful to be with you again. I'm delighted that you could, and so excited for wherever we're going to be sharing, because we never know what might come up. But I know that I had a lot of people saying how wonderful it was to hear you. So I am delighted and so honored that I am in your presence again.
Oh, it's entirely mutual, and I received some wonderful comments too about our video. So, yeah, so like when you said, well, let's make another one, it's like, yep,
Yes,
let's do it.
So just before we started, we were actually having a conversation about the 1111 symbols and what was then called the Star Knowledge Conference, and the great soul that was Chief Golden Light Eagle, Standing Elk, Lauren Zephyr. Mm-hmm. So you were just going to share your connection with him.
Yeah. As I was saying, I never had an opportunity to meet him in person, but going back to probably even the late 1990s, through various friends, I started seeing messages that he had put out online as Standing Elk. And so I began to read these, and every single one of them spoke to me. And then right around that time, or a little bit after, then I began to learn about the 1111 Star Nations symbols and laws. I think my introduction to them actually came from Dr. Richard Boylan. But then when the chief's books about the star symbols came out, then I, got an early copy. And then just last year, I think it's from his daughter, I think, I was able to get another copy that for me, I think was maybe actually a better edition. I think it went back to the original writings. But each of those symbols speaks to me, and in particular, the symbol of sound, vibration, and light. But in one way or another, all of them speak to me. It was in this context about Chief Golden Light Eagle that I wanted to mention that 2 weeks ago in the Medical QiGong session that Michael Perfetto and I had, it was really quite extraordinary. It started off with me feeling that energy work was being done to my feet. And I asked Michael if he was doing it, and he said no. And later in the session, an understanding came to me that it was a mantis star being, one of those that's helping me, was doing the work on my feet. But also in that session, as it often happens, images, images and messages come to Michael and myself as well. But in this particular session, about 4 or 5 words and images came to Michael. And when he shared this with me, he told me that these are things that I know, that I talk about. Like he mentioned, Planet Kazanan, an image of a large tree came to him, and I have tree connections and sometimes messages from them. Tonantzin, the Mesoamerican goddess of earth, spring, and maize. I talked to Michael about that. He saw an image I think, in my heart, that the heart was just really filled with what he saw as really beautiful energy. But the last image that he came to me, this is the one that I really wanted to mention. He had this image of wild horses. And, you know, we were both kind of scratching our heads thinking, well, what does this mean? And at the end of the session, when I was getting ready to leave his office and come home rather, I stopped at the door, turned around and said, Michael, I'm getting an image of horses running across the sky, you know, horses in the sky. And I said, I'm feeling a Native American vibe with this. And once I got home, I started getting more of a feeling about Chief Golden Light Eagle. I was feeling a connection with him, and I remembered all of his teachings about connections, about Native American connections with the Pleiades. And then the final image, or the final realization that came to me, was seeing the Pleiades star cluster as looking like a herd of horses. And, you know, with the rise of the Pleiades and how it goes across the sky, it was like this herd of horses running across the sky.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So that happened two weeks ago.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I have had a few experiences with him, and lots of people have since his passing, which is soon the anniversary of his passing. So my sense is that he is just visiting, you know, just maybe had some kind of allowance or dispensation, or felt like just coming to take a look at what we're up to. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. We're definitely connected. And you know, the whole notion of people dying and then they're gone, that's that's a really very limited understanding of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, you know, we talk about connecting with star beings. We talk about connecting with higher parts of ourselves, which of course are us as star beings. But it's exactly the same thing with family, friends, people that we know about, but maybe we never met in this life. We can very easily connect with them. It's exactly the same thing. Their consciousness does not die. Their consciousness is immortal. And, you know, it just moves up to another frequency beyond the physical.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I wanted to talk about that because I feel there are so many people, not necessarily about connecting to dear ones and loved ones that have dropped the robe, as they say, and passed on to other dimensions, but the family of star nations that are very much in the body. So they're humans in the body, they're just not necessarily on this planet, on planet Earth. So I know that you have told me this, and also I've read it in one of your blogs about the feeling that you are in simultaneous time with what you feel is your star self in the Pleiades. So I feel that this is, well, for me personally, I feel there's some connection that feels that's outside of me. So it's not an aspect of me or my higher self, me. And then there is an aspect that I also feel is what I call my future self. So yeah, what do you say about that?
You're putting me on the spot.
Well,
oh my God, this is oh boy, this is.
Well, I know that you wrote about it on your blog.
I definitely feel this myself. And so, I'm happy that you mentioned this, but the reason why I had that reaction of like, oh my gosh, what do I say here? There's so many options that, that we can have, because when we come into this physical life, as we've discussed before, it's entirely up to us. When we go out of the physical body, into the higher planes again, whether to come back here, whether to come to another star system, another dimension, the choice is entirely ours. And then working that out with our guides. And, I get there's a process that a soul goes through before coming back here or another place, in terms of developing one's life plan. So, we certainly are higher dimensional beings. But I think there's various options, or various, almost use the word permutation, for experiences we have. Yes, I do feel that I'm connected with a higher part of me, and that we are living lives simultaneously in two dimensions or more. This is something that I began to understand over time. At first, I didn't understand it, but in some of my early blogs, in fact, in blog number 1, I remember there was this one session. It was probably acupuncture with Michael at the time, but this was one of these cryptic messages that's very short, and I think it was just one sentence, and I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something to the effect of, I'm feeling connections with another part of me. And I had me in quotes. But yes, I have felt that for maybe around 6 years or so, and then more clarity came to me. I have some close friends who have star connections. And one of them has told me how she has had visions of me being on a starcraft with her. And she sees me as playing a particular role as my Palladian self. And it did take me a while to really get the idea of, yes, there is this connection that's happening simultaneously. And of course, it sends my logical human mind flying out the window. But when I feel it energetically, it just feels entirely natural. And I think that Michael has a similar kind of feeling. In one of Robert Monroe's books, if I'm remembering correctly, he used the term bilocating. And I'm not sure if that's an exact, if it's exactly right to use that word to describe this. but I'm not exactly sure how else to describe it. Some of the experiences with this, I can remember a session with Michael where I saw myself with my team of guides. And so here I am on their level of frequency. And so I'm standing there with them and we're talking, just chatting away. And there was this feeling of, deep love, deep respect, but importantly, the word equality, that we're teammates. I think that's very important.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I feel more and more people are going to wake up to this possibility that we are truly not alone and that we're not the only humans existing. And I feel, as you say, and thank you for taking the question, because it's true, there is not one way or one experience. It's the way that we, my personal experience is not necessarily your personal experience. There's not only one way. Yeah, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And absolutely the equality, they're not, to me anyway, my experience of them when I connect is that they are, yes, they're friends. They're close. They're close to my heart, like family or more than family, like tribe. I know some people have a difficult time with their Earth family. So it's really like a belonging, like an energy that it's the same, like a resonance that feels the same. But
that's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah. As you were describing it in your words, the word colleague came to mind. I also get that our star friends and guides hold us in absolute deep respect, because we're the ones that have taken this on, taken a human body on in this dense material plane, with all this stuff going on. And, there's times that I'm listening to the news or reading the newspaper or something, and I just have this feeling of, my God, this is a primitive place.
Yeah.
And humanity has like a big-headed attitude about ourselves, like, oh man, we're the top dog on planet Earth, which actually isn't the case. And we could talk about that, of course, but there are higher level energetic beings that we're sharing the Earth with that, that humanity doesn't have a clue about. But, God, there's so many, the Earth, I'm kind of stumbling a little bit here trying to get my words together. It feels like I'm getting some messages coming in. It's like, this is such a beautiful planet, and the Earth is held in such high regard throughout the galaxy. And it is a school. And this school has obviously very particular lessons. And souls literally from all over come here to this school. But it can be very difficult, as we know. Duality, like the electromagnetic spectrum that we've talked about is on a continuum. And we can experience duality in a whole range of ways here. And I think this is one of the special features of this school. We can experience it in brutal, brutal's a good way, just terrible, terrible ways things that humans do to other humans. And then we can go higher in the spectrum of duality. And there's just, sublime, inspiring experiences that people have with one another. So there's this whole range of our experience here on Earth. But yeah, this is the school. And so everyone coming to this school has and is a higher level being. And, again, like I refer back to the work that you're doing, like in finding star origins, because that's a beautiful confirmation for people that it's safe to say that the vast majority of people having a human life right now did not originate on Earth. We came from other places, and here we are now.
Thank you. Yes.
I kind of lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. And yeah, right as you were saying, I felt, when you said you felt that some information needed to come through and you were sharing that. I felt that so many of the people that are now wondering, well, who am I? There is a frequency that is arriving on Earth that hasn't been here before, and is assisting so many to rise in consciousness and to literally, I feel like it's an instant awareness that wasn't there before, and then this realization that there is so much more potential to obviously the being that we are, but also in collaboration or in co-creation with with the people around us, that I feel is important to share, that we have a choice, right? We all have a choice. We are, even when we come from a much higher frequency or way of being, which is an evolved culture, and then we choose to be here, and as you say, we are the ones doing this being part of this evolutionary phase on Earth, then we still have a choice. We could just come here and just watch the show, or we could choose to remember who we are in time and then play a part, play a role, take our responsibility, and fulfill the mission, the sacred agreement to be here.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for talking about the duality is real here, but there are ways of rising and seeing the sublime. So thank you.
Yeah. It's all frequency. Yeah. I remember the line of thought that I was starting to express, because you were asking me about different ways that people can have connections, like with higher parts of themselves. So at a minimum, all of us are, the word starseed is often used, that we do have these connections with the stars, with the higher parts of our star, ourselves. And all of this is contained within our higher self. And so when we are having these connections, we're also making these connections within our higher self. So this is something that causes my mind to go out the window. Because in conversations that I've had with Michael, and we're talking about some of his understandings that he had gotten from his work at the Monroe Institute and reading Robert Monroe's books and Rosalind Mcknight's books, who worked closely with Robert Monroe for years doing out-of-body work and connecting with star beings. I highly recommend her books, by the way, Rosalind Mcknight. And then there's also three books by Robert Monroe. But they talk about, and this is what Michael and I were talking about, there's a going out that's simultaneously with going within. And in one of Rosalind's books, she talks about experiences that she was having with her helpers, who were a team of star beings. And they were talking about how the higher levels of experience are within us. And so I've kind of worked with this a little bit, and I don't see how that can be with a three-dimensional physical human body. But our higher self, if that's what we're talking about, okay, well, that's easy. That's a no-brainer, because that's the summation of all of our experiences wherever we've been, our various homes in so many different star systems, different dimensions, even different galaxies. All of that is contained within our higher self. So as we tap into this vast library of our higher self and who we are, then it's like we're in very familiar territory. Nothing should come as a surprise or a shock. That's a better word. Nothing should seem alien. I really don't like that word.
Yeah.
Alien.
I call that the place of all knowing.
Yes, there you go. That's perfect. Yeah. So from that perspective, yes, all of these things, all of these star beings, all of these star origins, all of that stuff is within us. Absolutely.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that it's the paradox of it being within, but also without, which I think a lot of people wonder that. It's the way I created a word, and the word is the frequency sequence, because this is how I see it. I see it like I think we spoke about the hologram before. I kind of see it like a hologram, a sacred geometry, harmonics, and that we are all having our own, and all that it's in there is everything, like the memories of all timelines, past lives and future lives, and the frequency of your origins and all of that good stuff. And we carry that with us when we arrive here, but we don't always necessarily know how to return to it, to that one point where we can connect. And so that is the higher self, or whichever way it is. I feel that is like the point where all memory exists and I tend to say that is within, because there is the way I hold 3 minutes every day with my communities, and that now I call it the voyage through consciousness. And so for a very long time, we've been doing this thing of tuning into the being that we are, that, it's more than just the body, but it resides in the body. And then from that place of all knowing, or the 0 point, whatever people want to call it, but I do talk about the frequency sequence because it feels to me that is a precise mathematical equation of who we are. And if we can feel it, it's a sensory thing for me anyway. If I feel it, and if I don't know who I am at least knowing who I'm not by constantly connecting to it. So I know when I'm out of frequency, because it doesn't feel good. It's just that feeling of, ugh, what's wrong with me? Until here I am, I'm back within that being. And then from that place, I feel that I can connect to those particular lines that connect me to my galactic origins or family, or so that's how I see it or experience it and talk about it.
I hope that people watching this video will rewind or replay what you just said several times, to really let that soak in, because that's just beautiful. Yeah, that's absolutely my experience too. I wanted to mention that with the medical QiGong work that Michael does with me, all of this is about sensation, is about feeling, and the messages and visions, images. All of this is coming through energetic sensation. It's not coming through the mind as such. It's not coming through what we've read or what particular rabbit holes we've gone down, online, because there's a lot of rabbit holes out there. But in what I've seen, and like some of my friends that have gone down some of these rabbit holes and what they're sharing, what they're saying, I don't feel a real high energy frequency, with those rabbit holes. So that's one reason why I stay away from them. But going back to, in effect, getting out of the mind and into our body, our energy body, the higher bodies, the higher frequency bodies, is that all that stuff's in there. And one of the things that I've noticed over the years now working with Michael is that, as I described in our previous video, that with the medical QiGong, he's going through the major organ systems. And he described this as not exactly the physical organ, but rather the energy system for that organ. But like when he comes to my heart, invariably words, messages, visions come to Michael. And then these are messages for me. And then he tells me about these. And lately, messages have been coming from the spleen. This is something that I've noticed in particular this year. The spleen, if memory serves, represents the earth in traditional Chinese medicine. I'm trying to think. Sometimes the lung. A while back, Michael was working on my left lung, and a vision came to him of one of my guides, one of the female guides that I've mentioned to you, that is a very tall, light blue being. So, but yeah, it's very interesting how all this stuff comes out of ourselves. again, like the physical body, at its level, but then at a higher level would be the energy systems, that comprise our physical being.
Yes, thank you for referring to the work of Medical QiGong and I forget his name, Michael Perfetto, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
That is another really good way. I feel anything that is bringing you back. Obviously, medical qigong is very specific, but qigong in itself, or any form of harnessing one's own energy and getting to know energy is also a really good way to tune within and then connect to galactics. Kind of feels important here just to mention, because I feel people have asked me many a times that and my response is always, don't go out there looking to connect, but be with the being that you are, be with yourself, know thyself. Yes. And then all of those things are revealed, rather than just go off literally into the field and say, I'm just going to connect to. Certainly there is a frequency in the stars. I do astrology, and we know how the alignments are playing out in our lives. So certainly right now we're in the Sirius alignment season. So Sirius energy is strong, but I don't necessarily say go out there and connect to the star beings in Sirius, but you can certainly connect to the frequency that is coming through the stars, just like you can connect to Neptune or Venus, or unless you are like yourself, unless you know your people, your guides, the frequency is known to you, then yes, go slow with that. Yeah. There's a lot. I'm not speaking to you, Roger, but just for the purpose of whoever watches that there is still a lot of manipulation out there. So Qigong is a good one, and certainly medical Qigong, and anything that brings you back into balance and harmony. But it's fascinating. I'm fascinated by your work with Michael Perfetto.
I mentioned to Michael that you would be interested in doing a video with him, and so I mentioned that to him, and so we'll see if something could happen.
Yes.
That would be amazing, because I describe Michael as having this huge toolkit. There's acupuncture, there's qigong, moving qigong, and then medical qigong. There's, he's also a Chinese herbalist. Various meditations, the stuff with the Monroe Institute, all kinds of readings that he's done. I mean, it's
amazing. Let's do that. I would be delighted, and just the three of us would be good. Absolutely.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
We're mentioning a lot of the, about Robert Monroe and the Monroe Institute, and so I never trained, but I am also fascinated by the work that Robert Monroe did.
I haven't been to the Institute, so I've not had any of the training. It was Michael that told me about Robert Monroe, and this was based on the kinds of dreams that I was having and then sharing with Michael. In particular, when I saw myself flying in various ways, and I described some of those, I think, in our previous video, but I was seeing myself flying for a whole bunch of years in various dreams. And so when I told Michael about that, he asked me if I knew about Robert Monroe, and I said no. And he said, well, I would recommend getting his book, Ultimate Journey. So this was the third and last book that he wrote. Try to remember if I remember the titles of his other books. I think one is.
I will just add the link below, so don't worry if you don't remember it.
Yeah, yeah, okay, good. But yeah, he wrote two other books, and I got those also and read them. But Ultimate Journeys is just like a treasure trove of higher level, energetic, consciousness raising things. And in reading the book, as memory serves, I think I got to page 9. And then here, for some reason, I remember that. But on page 9, here is this statement from Robert Monroe that to the effect that flying dreams can actually be out-of-body experiences. So that really opened up, you know, some windows and doors for me. But so much of what he described, I was starting to experience myself through my own practices and then the collaboration with Michael. And again, a little while ago in our talk, I used the word like maybe familiar or being at home, that these experiences were not a shock, you know, we're not alien, you know, that kind of thing. So I had that same kind of ringing true when I read Robert's book. There were a couple of things that I put in what I described as my imaginary question mark box. You know, I'm not entirely sure, but I just put it there, and further down the road, I can go back and open the box and pull it out and then look at it with fresh eyes. But I had a similar thing in reading Rosalind Mcknight's book. She has two of them now. The one that I read first was, what was it called? Cosmic Journeys. And then her second book was called Soul Journeys.
That's the name. Sorry to interrupt you. That's the name I've been using for a good 18 years for my past life regression work. I call it Soul Journeys.
Yeah, excellent. So her first book, in Cosmic Journeys, it talks about experiences that she had in working with Robert Monroe. The Monroe Institute tried to have a meeting place between what I'd call the mystical, for want of a better word, and then the scientific. Robert was an engineer, a sound engineer. But in the 50s, at some point, he just began to be out of his body. And over time, I mean, he just did not understand what was going on. But over time, he was able to, you know, learn what was happening. And then he started developing some sound technologies to help one go beyond the physical. And what's repeatedly said in publications coming from the Monroe Institute is the importance for more people to know that they are more than their physical body, and that there is no death as we conventionally understand it, that it's a transition. You know, it's going from the dense physical, our consciousness then, you know, goes into a higher level of existence. He said, like, you know, if people just understood that one thing, so many things would change, so many fears would just drop away, and so on. But going back to Rosie's book, she used the name Rosalind. You know, that was her formal name, but everybody that knew her called her Rosie. So now I can start calling her Rosie. The experiences that she had with Robert, and again, these were under kind of like a lab condition. Robert was recording everything that was transpiring. He was observing. Rosie was connecting with what she called her invisible helpers, who were a team of star guides. She was describing what was happening. And I wanted to mention this to kind of circle back on the going out and going within. She describes experiences very clearly that sound like they're going out. She talks about, as an example, her star being friends, like putting her in like a protective bubble that enabled her to go into extremely high other dimensions. She talks about literally beaming up into a starcraft. And part of that process of going here to there required her energy, her frequencies to change. They had to do like a cleansing, a purification, and a raising of the frequencies. And then she describes the starcraft. She describes the star beings that were helping her. This was part of like an ongoing set of lessons that, you know, that these higher level star beings were helping her with. And then she was giving all this information to Robert, who, you know, was in a room. Yeah. And then, you know, it was all being transcribed down. And the experiences that she talks about are just truly, truly remarkable. So this certainly gives me a sense that, yeah, they were going out. They were going way out. It's really interesting, some of the places that they went to that were at a extremely high frequency. And she would observe various energy beings there that were doing a particular work. They were communicating telepathically. She describes one scene that they were working on a particular project, and there were a group of them forming a circle. And so telepathically, they were going back and forth to one another to figure out something. And then she describes an even higher level being that began to materialize. Well, materialize isn't the right word because they're at a frequency, but, you know, came down into their frequency. And then everyone could see this being in this form. And then he helped them with the particular problem that they were having. So she was seeing all of this, you know, with her team of guides.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It reminds me of our experiences in 2020. We ran something called the 108 Days Project, and we came together every day for 108 days. And the group became very, very close. Like, we created some kind of alignment where, and still there is 3 of us that meet often, and we have each other's, like, we're in each other's visions. And now we hold 3 minutes a day, but it began with just 1 minute a day tuning in. And at the time was talking about, you know, rising beyond the frequency of the busy mind, and just allowing something to come in, whatever it is. I have no intention, just hold it open. And over the course of the 108 days, we started getting a lot of information that, so we would do the 1 minute, and then we would meet and say what we saw. And we started to receive like information that was cosmology and the creation of the universe, and like stuff that we had no real concept of, but we understood them because it was coming in like symbols and frequencies, and somehow all of us in the group had a little bit, and we would synthesize the information like within an hour and a half. Sometimes we would stay together for 2 hours. And that was amazing because we knew we were receiving information, and it kept going. Like the next day we had a little bit more, and the next day we had a little bit more. So it started to make sense what we were receiving. I'm still writing a book about that. It was a constant teaching, like I think I could say, of information, and we were all receiving parts of it. So when you were speaking about the beings together and then like a higher consciousness coming in, it reminded me of that, and also reminded me of how important it is for us to be with each other. You know, because we each have a piece, like, you know, what you share is so powerful, and it's like medicine to my soul. So I know that the more we come together, the more we come, yes, I feel that too, or I have the same experience, or I feel the same way. And so the more we come together, and I always say, you know, go find the others, whoever your frequency is, be in the totality of yourself, and then it will naturally magnetize the others, because we are at the stage, I feel, I mean, what do you think? We're at the stage of needing each other.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Teamwork, collaboration.
Teamwork. Yes.
Yeah. Those are keywords, I think. I've talked at times about how we're in the process of going to evolving to a new social model. And, you know, of course, what we see here right now is a lot of division, a lot of, you know, headbutting and all this stuff. The, you know, control, power, you know, all that stuff is, I think, actually a key part of this third dimensional Earth school. But, you know, we're getting ready to graduate. We don't have to keep being in the same grade. We can go to a higher grade in the school. The Earth has so much to teach us. And so even in this physical life, we can go into higher classrooms, if you will, within the Earth school. But this new social model that we're going to is so different from what we have now. The new social model, as I see it, is, again, the words teamwork, collaboration, cooperation, respect, love, caring, knowing that while we are an individual, we are more than that. We're part of a greater collective. And so the idea of liberty has a caveat that, yes, we all have choice, we all have liberty, we have free will. But then the caveat is, as long as it doesn't impede on another person's liberty, choice, and free will, because we are a collective.
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
Something I was curious about is, were you able to have any more insights about the things that you told me from my mini chart?
From your chart, yes, I have your chart in front of me.
Yeah, you know, because after you put the video up, you know, you and I were talking, and you were able to clarify for me that the connection that I feel so deeply with the Electra system in the Pleiades star cluster, that would apply to what you told me about
Alcyon.
Alcyon.
Yes.
For some reason, I
So the degree
yeah.
in the zodiac is very close. So
Yeah.
the system, you know, we're still very backwards with our technology and systems. So the system was showing me the degree of Alcyon, but Electra, and you say Cazinon, right? You said there are 7 planets.
I'm sorry, what did you ask?
I think I remember you telling me how many planets there were within the Electra system.
Oh, I don't know how many planets there are. I haven't really asked that question, but in doing a series of pendulum readings a number of months ago, what I got was the Cazinon is the 4th planet in the Electra system. I was also getting that there may also be some life on the 3rd planet, but I haven't dug very deeply into that. When I think about Alcyon and then Electra,
so just for the purpose of the people, sorry to interrupt, just for the purpose of people listening, we're speaking about the Pleiades and a star in the Pleiades, which is Electra, and then the planets that are in her star system.
Yeah.
So Cazinon. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So like when I think about Electra and then Alcyon, for some reason, a really strange association comes to me that I have no idea where this is coming from. So like with Alcyon, I think of that as being kind of like a capital. And for some reason, I think of Tokyo. And then for Electra, I think of Kyoto.
Huh.
I have no idea where that's coming from. But
so they're like an interconnected, obviously they're an interconnected culture.
Yeah.
Living in.
Yeah.
I like that thought. I like that thought. And would you say that they're all humanoids there, or because you mentioned about the mantis that are one of your guides?
Yeah. Well, you know, as we were talking about in the other video, what I get from my guides is that I guess what I would call conventional information, like what are their names? Where are they from? This kind of thing. It's strictly, that's not important. That's, you know, that could be rabbit hole stuff.
I hear you.
Don't go in the rabbit holes, but, you know, connect with them. There should be a sign.
Don't go.
Yeah. But, you know, what is important, at least for me, I mean, I'm not wanting to talk about others and how they do their work because, you know, we're all here to do particular work. So I'm not wanting to be judgy or anything like that. But for what I'm needing to do, what my guides are telling me, what's important is that I connect with them energetically, that, you know, I know that they're there. I know that they're helping us. Even like doing energy work on my feet that I mentioned, they're helping it, you know, they're helping us in so many ways. And all of us have our own teams, our own guides that are helping us. So yes, I have no information about, where they're from or anything like that. The beings that Michael and I have come to know or describe as Palladian, yeah, definitely very human-like, but a much higher frequency. The kind of visions that I'm having, Michael's having exactly the same thing. Like I described, I think in our last session, that here's Michael doing the energy work, and then he's seeing one or more beings that are helping him. Sometimes it feels like it's a crew, multiple beings that are helping him. And I remember in one session, a message came to him that said, "Don't try so hard." And then he just kind of backed off. He just kind of backed off and gave him some space. And these huge energy flow came in. Another message came to him one time that said, there are different ways to do this. Perhaps one of the most mind-blowing experiences that Michael had was, here he is doing the energy work. He looks down and he saw a third hand. Yeah. And so he looks, and then here's a Palladian standing right next to him who was helping with the energy work. When Michael told me about that, I said, "Oh, wow. Doesn't get much better than that."
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we have all this help, and as we've talked about, the team of guides I have are a collection of different beings. But again, what we come to see as Palladians do look very human-like. But again, I have no knowledge of what exact system they're from. I feel that I have at least 2 Palladians in my team. But again, actually, I'm just kind of getting a vibe now that one of them may be from Alsoni. Or Alsoni. Yeah, I just had that little vibe that, yeah, maybe one of them is from there.
I love it. I love that you're having the conversation as we are having a conversation here. And you just asked me the question about what else in your chart. And did I speak about your connection to the Arcturians through Chiron, through the, because that you're bringing such healing through the frequencies.
That was really beautiful, because my ears really perked up.
Yeah.
When you did that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then when you also said about Mars, because there's the connections. Maybe this would be a good time, since we're talking about this, to talk a little bit more about some of the structures that I've seen in different places, because that might be of real interest to people.
Okay.
When I talk about Arcturus, I don't know the planet. I haven't felt a need to dig into that, like I felt a need to dig in a little bit more to Kazanan. Perhaps because that word was actually given to me through Michael in the message, Kazanan is home. So that was kind of like an invitation, to go through the door and see a little bit more about it. But with Arcturus, I don't know. I don't know what planet it is. But I've had a number of visions and dreams of a structure, and I see it as being kind of tall and slender. And I would absolutely love to hear from people that have had experiences with this structure, and we can just learn a little bit more from one another about it. I've had experiences of being inside it and having energy work. I don't have really many visual experiences of the structure. I can't describe what the inside looks like, although I do kind of have a sense of, looking up and seeing this, this big structure. So yes, there's been experiences of energy work inside it. I've also seen myself with a council, actually several council experiences. There was the experience that I described to you of being in that structure and feeling all of these energetic strands or connections coming to me. I described it like a web of energetic connections, and these are all connections with the star nations, the various—
All of them.
Yes, all of them are connections with the star nations. From what I gather, this is something that my Palladian self, if I can use that expression, because I don't know how else to describe it, this other part of me is doing a lot of work, a lot of connecting work, a lot of coordinating work.
Thank you.
With the star nations, yeah.
So we do see things like that in our groups, and they're often sharing that they see structures. And for many months now, since last year, they say that we are creating structures like that, and then they're just waiting to be used, but they're somewhere.
Okay.
So that's a little. I mean, there's a bit more, but those are the parts. There's so many different people in the group have seen those structures being created, and some of them more than others and more often than others. But yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So maybe, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, maybe you should come onto the group one day when we do a meeting and share. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I've also last time I described the 3 Arcturians that Michael and I have been seeing, and how they're part of the Arcturian Council that sends transmissions to Daniel Scranton. So that's all going on. There was a dream that I had that was extremely interesting that had to do with his structure, because in the dream, I was seeing a hardware store. Looked like an old-fashioned, traditional kind of hardware store. And so I was in it. And while I was in the dream, there was an understanding that this is actually a place of wisdom and healing. And while I was there, a new person, there was a sense that older people are helping younger people that come there. And then as the dream progressed, a new person came into the hardware store, and I was asked to tell this person about it. Now that struck me as being interesting, because what that tells me is that I know about this place. See what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah.
And then the next day, a realization came to me that the hardware store that I saw in the dream was just a representation of the Arcturian structure. So what this is telling me is that I have a very old connection with that structure, and I do feel that.
Absolutely.
I also wanted to mention that I've been seeing a golden pyramid on Kazanan, and likewise I've been inside it. It feels very familiar to me, like it's an old friend. And in one of the sessions with Michael, I saw myself inside the pyramid. I was looking for words to describe it. And what came to me was the phrase, making deep connections. And there's this sense that beings from all over, I guess I could say all over the galaxy, but beings from all over come to this structure, this site.
Wow.
Yeah. So that might, I think that's why I have an association with Kyoto, you know, with all their ancient temples there.
Yes, I have to research, because I'm sure you have connections to ancient, to the wise, to the wisdom that was ancient, the East. I'll research that.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah. In passing, in our other video, I was, you know, I described the lifetime when actually I should say lifetimes, because there were multiple ones, but I came here to Earth as part of a Star Nations team.
Yes.
The first one that I learned about was from the Pleiades, and I think it came from Alcyon, and it went to Mesoamerica. And so each of us on this team had you know, certain expertise that each of us was, you know, was giving to the people. And it feels to me that my connection with what is now called the Chol Q'ij, there's a Palladian version, if you will, of the Chol Q'ij.
You know what is really interesting is that today I was listening to a Dakota speak about the connection of the Dakota people and the Mayans, and how they have similar, how they have similar knowledge. So I love it, absolutely. And you do have the connection to Auriga constellation and Capella in particular, which is Mayan. So absolutely, yeah, this is a piece of information that I don't have that you were gifting me, which you mentioned last time, of the Mayans through Alcyon. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for like a great many years, you know, I was working with the Chol Q'ij, and I was extremely fortunate to develop a connection with the Mayan elder Rigoberto Itzep in Guatemala. And I received teachings from him, and I was able to, you know, ask some questions. So it felt to me that it was of great importance that I root myself in the Chol Q'ij as it's followed by the living Maya, and not something else, you know, that's non-Maya. And
so for the people that don't know, the Chol Q'ij is the Mayan calendar, right? It's following, you're following the calendar.
Yeah,
the energy.
Yeah, it's one of the cycles. Yeah, it's a 260-day cycle that's based on 13 numbers from 1 to 13, and then 20 day signs that represent different things. And interestingly, the day signs, for those that read the book, the Popol Vuh, you know, the sacred book, the creation book of the Quiche Maya, there are things in the Popol Vuh that you see in the day signs, you know, like particular symbols, particular images, particular stories. So there is a connection between the Chol Q'ij and the Popol Vuh. But as I think began to experience more of the star connections aspect of myself, I just started having this feeling that, you know, I couldn't shake, that there's a form of the Chol Q'ij in the stars, and that what is now the Chol Q'ij with the Maya, it's kind of like having a veneer of the Mayan culture over, perhaps you could say, like an energy structure that is of the stars. I don't know how else to explain it, but yes, it seemed to me that I had knowledge of what I would call like a Palladian Chol Q'ij. And I know that it goes beyond the Pleiades. It's just not the Pleiades. But I was part of this team, and this was something that I knew. And so for years now, I've been trying to come back to that. And in some measure, I have gotten more insights. And it's energetic.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah. So there was that team. And then one that I mentioned just in very brief passing was one to China, specifically the Gobi, what's now the Gobi. There was a very ancient civilization there. And again, I was part of a team that came there. My sense, it was in even more of the distant past than coming to Mesoamerica. So I've been looking for more about that. I think that helps to explain the connection I feel with traditional Chinese medicine.
I have to pull the extended chart out, but I think you have connections to Centauri, and Centauris have information also, which is what you're talking about. I'll check and I'll message you.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah. Then lastly, I was with a team that went to Atlantis. And I kind of have a sense that was to help before the final destruction. I helped in some way, but it's not, I don't have clarity about exactly what we did there, but there was, yes, the 3 Star Nations teams, but the one to Mesoamerica is the only one that I have a sense of where, you know, where we came from.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. This was very generous of you to share so much with us, and I look forward to whatever people have to, you know, if anybody needs to contact you, I will put the details below, and I will put the information about the books that you mentioned. And yes, let's do another one with the wonderful Michael Perfetto and Medical QiGong, And you spoke so much about the dream time, and I feel this is also something that is so important. Sometimes I feel that what we're doing in our groups is lucid dreaming, but certainly dream time, the time that you are actually asleep, keeping records of dreams is important. I lately don't dream. I used to dream so much. And lately I'm not dreaming, but maybe I'm doing things in the more wakeful time, and then I'm exhausted. I don't know what is happening, but dreams are important, especially now.
I'm not sure where I heard this, but if it was Robert Monroe or Rosie or someone else, but what they said was that when we have very high frequency out of body experiences during dream state, that when we come back into the physical, our physical being would not be able to remember those because there's such a frequency difference.
Thank you.
I know we're running out of time, but could I mention just one more thing real quick?
Please, yes, of course.
When I do my morning energy work, and I'm connecting with Electra and planet Kazanan and what I call the Kazinian frequencies and other parts of myself, an image sometimes comes to me of my physical body being a tuning fork. And one can easily find videos on YouTube of, what's it called?
Cymatics?
Sympathetic resonance. Sympathetic resonance. And this is profound.
Yes.
Very simply, two tuning forks are put together in close proximity. They're tuned to the same pitch. They usually use A440. In these examples, person strikes the one tuning fork and then dampens it, and this other tuning fork is vibrating. Now, there's a very deep lesson in this with energy work and connections. I've found that if we're in a state of fear and agitation, we're going to be in lower frequencies. As you were describing earlier, in terms of raising our frequencies, to make connections, higher connections within ourselves and our guides and friends, we at a minimum need to meet them halfway. So we need to raise ourselves, beyond conventional, what might be called 3D or 4D, into like a 5D experience. And then there, all kinds of stuff opens up. But it's exactly like the tuning forks, exactly like sympathetic resonance.
Amazing. Yes, very important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to share this, before we have
thank you.
sign off.
Yes. It is one of the laws of the universe, resonance. So if somebody listening is wondering how to raise in frequency, I always say, if you don't know how, go to nature.
Yes.
Because nature.
Yes. Exactly right.
Yes. Because nature holds the balance, and it's always in that perfect harmony, even though, there is toxicity because we created it. Nature knows how to hold the frequency. So at the very least, take shoes off and put your feet on the earth. And if there is no earth, try and find a tree and put your back to a tree. And then there's, the breathing exercise.
Right. It's really good hanging out with large old trees.
Mm.
20 years ago, there's a very large old tree in our area, and so I was, connecting with it in doing what can be called tree Qigong. And with this tree, I suddenly found myself in deep space. Thanks to the tree, there we went. So wonderful. Truly wonderful things can happen in nature.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll share a little story here. I had a tree as an oak tree. I often, wherever I live, I have a tree that I go to. Here I have some palm trees outside my house. There were oak often. So this was a particular oak that I went often, and I was living in France. And I had earphones because I went for a walk with the dogs, and I was just listening to music in my ears. And then I got to my tree and I did my thing of sitting with her and just, putting my back and just like chilling. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me that I had the music on, and I remember thinking, I thought it was spoken, I don't know. And I said, I'm sorry, I have the music on. And I heard the tree saying, no, I like it. It's good. I'll hear it with you. And that made me laugh. And then I felt the tree was telling me, I am listening to music all day long. And then she explained it to me that with the branches as it moves, she could literally pick up the frequency of the stars. And she could make music by picking up this star and that star and that star, and just make her own music through her branches.
Oh,
so
my
that was
goodness.
yeah. I just got shivers now just remembering about that.
I just got that too. Wonderful, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for bringing the memory up. It was stored somewhere as we do. Yeah. Yes, thank you so much for awakening our memories to our full potential and our galactic origins. It's always an honor and an immense pleasure to have some time with you.
I mean, we're all in this together. We're one,
We are.
Yeah. Well, thank
you.
I
look forward to, I look forward to more, and yes, thank you.
We'll see. Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, much love.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Roger. Thank you.